the second part of the identification for the unknown. So if your unknown predicted to be one of the two functional groups that I told you to predict and write your prediction, we're going to continue with the classification test to identify, to make sure that they are classified properly based on the functional group. And then the functional group itself is not going to be enough. It can only give the functional group, but it doesn't give the name for the compound. We need a name for the compound. And in order to find the name for a compound, we need to know the functional group, and we need to know the molar mass, melting point, and other identification. So I'm going to, some of you had carboxylic acid, as you indicated in your part 1. For the carboxylic acid, need to do melting point, which we did last time. Should I do the nitric acid, the silver nitrate test? Yes. Was the silver nitrate reliable? It's not reliable, and is not going to give me the definite no answer. If it does precipitate, then it means that it's carboxylic acid. But if it doesn't form a precipitate, you cannot take it that is not carboxylic acid. But solubility was good enough of the evidence for the carboxylic acid. If it dissolved in sodium hydroxide and it also dissolved in sodium bicarbonate, we can take that as the carboxylic acid. If it did not dissolve in sodium bicarbonate, or if it was not tested, then we had to check for both phenol and the carboxylic acid. So since you had that it did dissolve in sodium bicarbonate, phenol is eliminated, and we are going to treat the sample as the carboxylic acid. So for that, we need to measure 0.2 gram of the sample. Going to measure 0.2 gram of the sample. Basically, you do need the data today for to identify your unknown. The mass is going to be 0.2 grams. So you don't need any screenshots of the sample, of the setup or the experiment. You do need the data for final answers, final numbers. Point two. Going to add 50 milliliters of the ethanol. So basically following the procedure. The procedure is not the question today, it's the what type of carboxylic acid you have is the question. Or what is the name of the carboxylic acid that you have. So I'm going to follow the procedure just like the last experiment. And the sodium hydroxide that I'm using is a 0.1 molar. Those are the information you need. Mass of the acid that I used was 0.2 gram. Adding the phenolphthalein to make sure the sample dissolves. Okay. Going to add enough to the report for today's lab. It needs to be submitted. It's not the report, basically it's the form, and it needs to be submitted during the lab time before you leave. So it's going to be due by end of the lab time.
Professor, what
Nine
exactly is it that we're submitting? Because you have a blank for us as a Word document, and you also have the lab manual. So which one are we supposed to be submitting to you?
lab manual, please. Yes, the form from the lab manual page, because the one for D12, if there is one, is from the first edition and it has changed. Yes, no Word document, just the form. 9.2, record the volume for sodium hydroxide being used for the unknown A. Okay, 9.2 milliliters NaOH. Unknown. Yes, you submit it right after you're done with the data. So if you have your enough data already, you can start working on the form and then fill in the data. Yes. Okay. For silver nitrate, I'm going to try it. If it works or not. Silver nitrate test for carboxylic acid is not definite no if we don't get precipitate, but if we do get precipitate, it's yes, definite yes. Okay. So for the procedure for silver nitrate, like to do the silver nitrate test. in a tester. Dissolve it with ethanol. Dissolve the ethanol. And add silver nitrate. This is unknown A for silver nitrate test.
Dr. Mamari, this is Wafa. I'm here. I've been trying to contact you on the chat, but I guess you're not seeing the messages.
Can you please use the chat?
I mean, I've been trying to use the app for an hour.
I'm here. Are you sending private chat? I don't see any messages from you. Okay, right here. It's not working. Okay, can you send one chat message right now, Wafa? I want to see if I can see it or not, because maybe I didn't see it. Maybe it didn't come through. Just to test, to see if I can see it or not. Can you hear me now? Oh gosh. Okay, the silver nitrate test, it doesn't work, and that's the case that we had in the past. And I said, if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it's not carboxylic acid. If it's positive, it's definitely yes, but if not, we cannot say is not. So the same as the known sample, it behaved the same way. Okay. Okay. So people grouped with the unknown A, your data is complete, and you can go ahead and start with your paper. For everybody else, when you said that you have either alcohol, aldehyde, or ketone, we need to continue the experiment with your unknown and eliminate the choices one at a time and confirm that you do have the product. Okay, the first test I'm going to do, I'm going to check with the for carboxylic acid, no derivatives. Okay. So you could just replace the calculation for the derivatives. I don't know how many of you. Thank you. are unknown B and how many of you are unknown A? At this point, I appreciate if you give time to people who have unknown B to get their data because it's a longer one. Unknown A was a quick, just a titration. That's why I start with that. So if you have questions, you can help each other to answer questions for part A or concerns. But if you have unknown B and you have question, just before your chat message say B and then starts with your, so I know which ones I should look while I'm doing part B, please, if you don't mind. It's going to make it just fair and faster for students who are working with unknown B. Thank you so much. Okay, for those of you working with unknown B, what should be the first test you think I should do? Dinitrophenolitrazine? Okay. Let's try the dinitrophenolitrazine. Dinitrophenolitrazine, DNP. So we take 0.1 gram of the sample, dissolve in ethanol, and add milliliter of dinitrophenolitrazine. DNP. Going to dissolve in ethanol and add the, I'm going to add the sample. I'm going to add the reagent, the 2,4-dinitro at this point. This is the test for dinitrophenolitrazine and your unknown. I do not need the screenshots to be turned in. All you need to do to record your observation so you could identify your unknown. Did you all see the test tube with the result of DNP 2,4-dinitro? Perfect. So please record the numbers, okay, record the evidence, and I'm going to keep this, filter it, and use it as a derivative sample for the unknown. Because it's positive, then I can use this for my melting point also. So what would be the next experiment? What would be, which one? Which other test do you want me to do? Okay, chromic acid. Okay, I can do just the chromic acid, or I can do toluene and the chromic acid. But whichever last time you saw the right, you saw the difference between the aldehydes and ketone, we can use that. I mean, chromic acid is a good choice actually, because it's much faster. Okay. I'm going to filter it first and let it stay in the oven while we are finishing up the rest of the experiment so it dries up. Because if I wait and get the filtration for the last step, then I have to wait for it to dry, and you may not have the data before your lab is done. Okay. I'm going to wash it with ethanol. Okay, is there? So next step, you said, what should I do? Chromic acid test? Can do chromic acid test and the toluene. Those are the two tests that we left. Should I, after the DNP, the toluene test, and then iodoform test, then chromic acid test? Okay. Not much of crystal, but enough for melting point, because that's all I'm trying to find today. Melting point for this sample that is going to help you to determine what your unknown is. Going to leave it in the oven to dry before the melting point. It should dry soon. Okay. Toluene reagent, chromic acid or toluene, both of them should work, right? Both of them should work. I can do both of them. The only one that we are not going to do probably is the shift test, but we could do the chromic acid or we could do the toluene first. So 2 milliliters of, going to make the toluene reagent. That's 2 milliliters of the silver nitrate, ethynyl silver nitrate. Let's see if I find this aqueous silver nitrate. This is ethanoic. Okay. About 40 drops or 2 milliliters. Sodium hydroxide, 10%. And we are going to add sodium hydroxide. Precipitate form. Going to add the ammonium hydroxide until it dissolves. You already know this is a practice and it doesn't make any difference for the paper today. Yes, Tikva, let me read your. The silver nitrate test. This is for part A. It turned cloudy, but it's not very clear that the precipitate formed. Okay? But it's not very reliable. At least it didn't work last time either. But we know we have carboxyl. You said that you have carboxylic acid. The solubility test actually proves that you have a carboxylic acid. Okay. So I have the Toluene reagent. I'm going to add my sample.
Professor, are you doing the chromic acid test right now?
Okay. Okay, Toluene reagent and the Toluene reagent, the unknown did not show any reaction with the Toluene reagent. I was preparing my Toluene reagent and so no reaction with the Toluene reagent. That's for the Toluene reagent. For unknown B, no reaction. Please record it. So we are moving to the next part. For the Iodifer test, I'm going to take a test tube, dissolve the ketone, in 2 milliliters of water. Okay. Since it doesn't dissolve, I'm going to add the glyme. Okay. The sample that dissolves in mixture of water and diglime. This is just the sample B dissolved in water and grime. I'm adding the iodine reagent, looking for yellow color precipitate. If it doesn't happen, that means the negative test. If the precipitate happens, is positive. Okay. Repeat this. So the sample has dissolved. I'm adding iodine because the color got too dark. I had to do it again. It was hard to see if it's precipitate or not. Okay. The color remained, but no precipitate for this one, for this part. Record your observation, please, for iodoform. Okay. Did you record your observation for iodoform test? Yes? Do you still want me to hold it or no? You saw the evidence. Okay, perfect. There is a question if this is an A. No, we were done. We did the A first before we started the compound B. So any of the tests that I'm doing now is only with compound B, because with A we were done. All we had to do is the titration and then the silver nitrate. That's all we did for part A. If you mean sodium hydroxide, result for sodium hydroxide titration, that was the sodium titration of sodium, the unknown A with sodium hydroxide. And the value, how much was used, is in the chat trend, because I wrote it down to make sure that I don't forget when you ask me. Okay. So we are done with the Toluene test. We are done with iodoform test, the DNP test. The last one was the chromic acid test. Dissolve the sample in acetone and add chromic acid. Okay. This is the chromic acid test. I'm going to dissolve in acid in acetone and add the acid, the chromic acid, and bring it back to you. Dissolved in acetone. This is before adding the chromic acid, and I will have to add the chromic acid. Record your observation for chromic acid test. Okay, if you have group unknown B, did you record the observation? And the last step is to measure the melting point for the derivative. Try to take the sample or bring the my sample is dry enough. I'm going to take the laptop to the instrument room so you could see the melting, just the procedure for melting. Going to prepare samples. Iodoform was negative. Okay. Sure. The melting point is for derivative of the ketone, the 2,4-dinitro derivative of the ketone. So the table that you are using to identify your unknown, it should be like around page 230 for you to look at it. 230, 232. For ketone. Going to look at the table so I can check what would be the setting. I may have to put it at a higher number if it's more than 150. I would put the regulator at the higher number. If it's less than 150, I would put it smaller, like less than 5. So I don't know how much you remember from this chart I showed you. First time we were performing experiment with melting point. So if the melting point of the sample, it's between 100 and 150, the set will be between 4 and 5. If it's between 200 and 150, it should be between 5 and 6. If it's 200 to 250, the setting of the power regulator, it should be between 6 and 7. This thermometer shows up to 280. So the thermometer is okay. Let me bring my book so I could adjust this. Be right back. You asked for the iodoform test. The result for the iodoform test, here is the result for iodoform test. I think one of you asked for it. Sure. This was the Toluene test. for the hard copy, I have page, it has to be for ketones, right? Ketones for hard copy is 233 for me. 233, 234. Okay, it's melting almost. Okay. Okay, we're done with the data collection for unknown A and unknown B. I'm going to stop the recording. Now, based on the evidences that you have, it's not a group work, really. Each student needs to actually think and find out what should be the, or how to answer it. The only thing that I can tell you, even though it's in the lab manual, part A, for carboxylic acid, no derivatives. For the unknown B, we had one derivatives only. So if he's asking second derivative, we only do that if we really need to. But based on the data I collected, I don't need the second derivative. So we don't have the second derivative. We're not going to write the second derivative. If we had to do second derivative, that I didn't have enough data or enough information, then we had to do second derivative.